Welcome to the Devy Dojo. You already know what time it is. I'm the sensei. I'm here with my guy, as always, Chris, aka the Shifu. Listen, if you've been enjoying this show, make sure to sub on YouTube or follow us on your favorite podcast app. We're there. whatever you enjoy, we're there. Trust me. It helps us grow and it keeps you locked into everything that we're putting out. Tonight, we've got 8 freshmen, maybe even a couple of these redshirt freshman guys that you need to know before the season kicks off, which it's right around the corner, actually. So we've got some big-time talent that could rise fast. So without further ado, Shifu, I kick it to you.
Hello. I'm happy to be here. I'm also happy to be home. Last week I was on vacation and I was a little bit discombobbled. I feel like I was all out of whack trying to do everything with my setup on the road. So it's nice to be comfortable here in the underground dojo of my own home. So I'm looking forward to this. We talked about some true freshmen last week, and we've expanded a little bit to some red shirts this week. When we were doing all of our research for last week, it was like, man, there's more guys we want to talk about. Even at the end of the episode, I was like, we got one more on the list, and we're going to talk about him today because there's, way more than 10 or whatever we talked about, 9 last time. So we got some freshmen to talk about today and some guys that we're excited about. And every time I look at any of these players, I'm like, man, I wish I would have thought about this guy earlier. I could have been sucking these guys up all off season in these Devy startups. Well, grabbing them up.
Phrasing.
Hands off.
What?
No touchy.
What is going on here? But to kind of piggyback off that kind of a little bit, there's definitely so many guys that we could talk about. Like I think we can make this a long-standing series.
Absolutely.
Not ready to do that or commit to that yet, but just saying there's a lot of guys. And I love this process, man, because it's like as we are building this show and continuing to put out content, it's only making us better, right? Like I'm discovering a lot of these guys for the first time. And I'm having the time of my life. I'm loving it.
Absolutely. I mean, looking at freshmen is always fun because, everybody knows the names that you expect to perform that have been on the field already. But a lot of these guys, all we have on them is a couple 24/7 write-ups and some high school film on Twitter. So It's fun to look at that, though. You can see some cool stuff and get an edge. And that's why we're here to pass our knowledge off to all of our wonderful listeners and viewers. And that's why today we are going to start with a name that a lot of people probably have heard, Gideon Davidson. He was the guy who I was alluding to. We almost talked about last week, and we ran a little bit over, so we're going to start off hot. That's one of your guys. So why did you want to talk about him today, Mr. Dustin?
Well, I want to talk about Gideon Davidson, the running back out of Clemson, because I love his situation. And I think it's more actionable than people realize. He's first let me describe him, right? He's a powerful, polished runner, and he's stepping into this offense with real opportunity in front of him. He stands at a listed 5'11", 195 pounds. He was a top 100 national recruit per all the services. But what separates him from the typical freshman profile is the sheer volume of this verified production that he got. I'm talking over 4 seasons at Liberty Christian Academy in Virginia. He racked up over 7,000 rushing yards. Let that marinate. 7,000 rushing yards and more than 100 total touchdowns. Add in that background of him being a two-way athlete and a track star, and you've got a player who he arrived on campus with a college-ready athletic foundation and the reps to match it. And what I loved about his tape, it showed a compact, efficient downhill runner who plays with a sense of maturity, not just that polish, but in his intent. He presses the hole decisively. He's going to run behind his pads with that low center of gravity, and he finishes every touch like a back who knows how to turn out those tough yards. There's no wasted motion in his game, right? I hate that dancing behind the backfield. I cannot stand that. And he doesn't have that on his tape at all from any of the reps that I saw. He's just a very smart and physical runner. All right, so from the trait standpoint, to move this on along a little quicker, his footwork, that downhill acceleration, feels reminiscent of like a Zach Moss type back. And I know that name doesn't sound sexy, but he has that same type of movement, maybe with a little more lateral juice, that slippery through tight spaces. That quality is going to show up, and defenders, they struggle to get their hands on him early, and he'll shrug off them without slowing down. He's not like a traditional burner, but I mean, in his track days, he did put up a 10.6 track speed in the 100-meter dash. So I mean, not
That's
slow
pretty
by
good. Yeah.
any means. Yeah, not slow by any means. But what I love the most about this, and same with like running backs in Dynasty, if they get an opportunity, I am going to be in. As a freshman now, you have vaulted up my rankings because I'm looking at his competition there, Jay Haynes and Jarvis Green. Not
Yeah.
much in terms of
Easy
competition,
competition.
right?
Yeah.
Easy competition.
He
And
should have some
the
opportunity
Clemson,
in front of him without a doubt.
yes, and the Clemson insider like even spoke to this actually, Chris, like the opportunity that presents itself for Gideon Davidson, and they said that he looks physically advanced, didn't carry himself like a freshman. They all talked about his traits, his maturity, and all this, and all that tells me is that the opportunity plus the coaching staff's trust equals starting role, locked and loaded for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And we would love to see that out of him this season, see how much he can do. He's definitely a guy I feel like is a little bit more on the radar than some of the guys we'll talk about today.
Yeah,
But that's for good reason. You know, he's one of the higher hyped prospects right now as a younger guy. You talked about him not dancing around a lot in the backfield, but what I like about him is he's very patient. So he has this kind of natural instinct that you can't really coach too much out of a lot of these guys, especially coming out of high school. He's got that patience to hit the hole when it opens and wait for holes to develop. So that's going to be a key aspect of his growth, I think, and being able to use his physical talents a little bit more is, you know, when you have those instinctual runners that wait for the plays in front of them to develop, that's going to open up a lot more opportunity than just, you know, giving them the ball and letting them rip, you know, which can work for a lot of these guys, but it doesn't always work. You want the guys that have more nuance to their game. And that's something that I think he brings.
absolutely. And just to even touch on that, like the patience behind the line, the intelligent running mixed with the physicality. My playstyle comp firm was actually shades of Kendra Miller at TCU. And funny enough, wouldn't you know, his offensive coordinator, Garrett Riley, was the same offensive coordinator for TCU that
Same
year. So
guy. Yeah.
same guy,
Interesting.
same type of running back.
That's a good
Man,
nugget. I like that.
yes.
Kendre, man, we're still waiting. Somebody joked about that in a startup I was doing, like, oh, maybe you can hit on Kendre because I was a little weak at the running back position. I'm like, man, I'm never touch a Kendre at this point. I don't want to wait forever. We're just all holding bags with Kendrick
Man,
right now.
I
But
mean, I've
decent
been hurt
comp though,
enough.
because you know there was a reason that he was as highly hyped as he was coming out. And if Gideon can have that sort of projection, just making it into the NFL, hopefully he'll have a better path to relevance than Kendre does currently.
Yeah, it's a play style comp, right? Like he's built from the same mold to me. I just saw it all over, and I'm like, man, you know what? And he's got the same play caller. He definitely has a type. Super excited. I like Clemson. Clemson should be a very good team. I mean, obviously that's low hanging fruit. They got a great offense, probably one of the best defenses in all of the NCAA as well.
One
So,
of the best quarterbacks. You love Klubnik.
hey man, you know I love Klubnik. That's my 105 in the
Absolutely.
recent, way too early 2026 rookie draft that I did with the FF Dynasty. So go check that out on YouTube.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it'd be fun to watch Clemson. It seems like they've been kind of on the back burner lately in the last few years, partially because Dabo just didn't want to take any transfers. He didn't want to play the new game of college football, but they're doing the right things, I think, to be exciting moving forward, and especially this year. So he's got
You
an
still have to
opportunity
recruit.
to. Yeah,
You still
absolutely.
have to
Yeah.
recruit, and everybody talks about the talent that's there now. He had to recruit those guys, right? He layered it in. Finally, a little bit more of those the transfer portal signings, but overall, man, I mean, he stuck to his guns, and I kind of like I gave him a lot of crap
I'm
for
fine
it
with it.
at the
Yeah.
time, but yeah, you know, he stuck to his guns, and it's paid off, man. Recruiting is alive and well in college football.
Everybody likes a little homegrown team, you know, and that is the classic way to play. So this is one of their homegrown players. They recruited him, and he's there, and we're looking forward to seeing what he does this year.
Yes, sir.
I wanted to talk about a tight end because throughout the history of the Devy Dojo, it's short history. We have discussed very briefly that tight end is not always a great Devy asset to put on your roster, especially if you have a very limited roster space. However, there is a guy who I feel like if we're going to talk about true freshmen, we absolutely have to talk about, and that is Linkon, the tight end of Kansas State. I actually pulled up a graphic I saw on Twitter from Fox, Michael Cohen from Fox. This is his top 10 impact freshmen. There's some guys that we have talked about in the past on here. There's a guy that we just talked about, Gideon Davidson, on there. And right there at the bottom, you can see Linkon Cure as the only tight end representing his top 10 list. And I think that's with good reason. He's 6'5", 230 pounds. I've seen him listed as tall as 6'6". That's the thing with these high school guys, right? You don't always get the best measurables. I also saw some guy on Twitter at Sir S'mores says he has it on good authority that Cure is all the way up to 245 pounds. I'm going to take that with some grains of salt, but you never know, because these Kansas guys, man, they're connected out there in Kansas. And this is a homegrown guy. He's from Kansas. He was recruited by all the major schools. His final two was Oregon and Kansas State, and he decided he wants to stick around and play for his home team there. And I think he's going to get a good opportunity to shine early on in his career. They do have a really nice veteran tight end room at Kansas State, but he's just so talented. I feel like he's going to get some opportunities as a freshman because you just can't really keep him off the field. He was the number 1 ranked tight end in this class, a 5-star recruit. He was ranked number 32 overall by 24/7 and number 16 on their freaks list. And, we love our freaks lists. So when you got a 6'5", possibly 6'6", 6'5", possibly 6'6", 230, possibly 245 if you trust Sir S'mores. This is a guy, he's really fast, dude. He's got some great tape. I know you watched a little bit of him in preparation for this, and you were like, you finally found a tight end I want to talk about.
I had to put that in the group chat, man. Like, shout out to my guy Chris for finding a tight end that I'm excited about, because we've talked about it. I've talked about it ad nauseum in the Discord anyway, which, by the way, it's free. It's going to be in the description for this episode. You need to join and get in there, because
come join us,
chat nonstop. But I was talking in there, and I'm like, look, I will buy all the old tight ends on my dynasty rosters. I'm not going to waste time getting these tight ends. But then Chris showed me this guy. And then I also got Mark Bowman coming down for my USC next year. I'm like, okay, there's some guys coming up that I'm legitimately excited for. You spoke to him being a 5-star. This was Kansas State's first ever 5-star prospect that they were able to get committed to their program.
Highest recruit in the history of the school, which is awesome. Plus, he's right there from Kansas. So I love seeing that kind of thing happen.
Yeah, and like you said, Chris, I'll touch on him briefly. There's sometimes when you watch highlights, when you watch film, and it just speaks to you. This spoke to me because the way he glides at 6'5", 230 pounds is wild. He moves like a wide receiver, but he finishes like a power forward, right? That tape confirms everything on paper. The easy burst, the natural tracking, that above the rim ability, it's all real. And he gives me that give me the damn ball energy too, not just finesse. He wants to go up and he wants to go win it. You can absolutely see when Kansas State, you can see why Kansas State made him a priority, because I think, Chris, that if they feature him early, even in like some limited package roles, it could get spicy real quick. And I got to say, I mentioned limited package role because in high school, he also got some burn at running back too. He lined up in the backfield. They handed him the rock.
Yeah, they were doing some like Wildcat stuff with him in high school.
Yeah, it was like Tyler Warren in high school. Like
I had that listed right here on my notes. Warren. Yeah, they were using him in high school. Probably just watching what Penn State was doing with Tyler Warren. Like, let's just do that with him. He's so good.
Yeah, when you
got at the high school level, he was dominant, man. Absolutely. He's going to have a little bit of adjustment to play the college game in the Big 12, but fantastic athlete. I think he could do it. Like you said, they used him all over the place to try to commit or to create mismatches, lining up out wide. I think they're going to continue to do that. Head coach Chris Kleiman called him a pseudo wide receiver this summer, saying he could line up at any of the receiver spots anywhere out wide. I think they're going to continue to do that because you just want to get the ball in his hands, because he's definitely a mismatch on especially those defensive backs. So if you can get him out wide, oh boy. When you got a 6'5" guy running at you as fast as he's running. He was the state champion in the 300 hurdles his senior year. Ooh. He was the state champion and the state championship meet record holder in the 110 hurdles. So he's fast, and those hurdles are probably nothing for him because he's so tall. Yeah. So love that. I mean, he's just going to I want to see this guy do some jumping over some defensive backs in the college game. That would be fun. I don't play any college football, mostly because I'm mad at them. They don't put it on PC. But on the new college football game, he's actually already an 81. I think he's one of the top 5 or 6 freshmen So they're recognizing him. I don't know what that means. I know that the Jets,
No,
pseudo
don't do
GM
that.
uses Madden. So.
No, you don't have to do him dirty like that on the pod.
I know,
Man.
yeah.
No, actually do it. That's a ridiculous way to scout your own team and others.
I mean, that tells you a lot.
Hey,
he's just a physical specimen, dude. He's so much faster than the other guys. When you watch his high school tape, I think I retweeted. He himself put out his highlights from senior year on his Twitter, and I found it when I was scouting him. I'm like, this is awesome. It's like a 10-minute senior year highlight compilation that he put out there, and I retweeted. I'm like, I can't wait to watch this guy at the NCAA.
Yeah, I'm over the moon for this. Like, and I'm still so new to him. I would not have. I mean, I heard the name, but tight end. I'm like, yeah, I don't care. I'm looking at these wide receivers, so I'm thankful that you put him on my radar because, like I said, those highlights, man, they spoke to me, and I cannot wait to see him in the Big 12, which we know what the Big 12 is all about, and it's not defense. So,
right,
you talked about him being a vertical mismatch, and when you look at the offensive scheme that they're going to want to run there at Kansas State, specifically the offensive coordinator Matt Wells, they've talked about how it's expected to evolve toward more motions at the line. They really want to stress the vertical seams in 2025, and I think that aligns perfectly with the profile that we have now established for Linkon Cure. As a freshman, I think he's going to see early snaps in those red zone packages, seam concepts, or gadget attachments like they did in high school.
He's exciting, man.
Like,
he's
I'm
one of only
stumbling over my words right now.
In the last 5 recruiting cycles, only 3 tight ends I think have been ranked a 5-star, and he's one of them. So definitely somebody to be excited about. You talked about Mark Bowman. My guy, of course, because I'm a homer, is going to be Andrew Olesh, but I don't want to talk about those guys. I wanted to talk about Cure because you watch him and it's just like, this guy's going to have a future for sure. If he develops even half as much as we think he might, he's definitely, somebody's going to pick him up. At the very least, he could be a NFL Darnell Washington type, if he doesn't quite hit his ceiling, but if he hits a ceiling,
better receiver, right?
The ceiling is the roof,
Yes.
So love it. Yes. Yeah. He had 9 games senior year, over 1,000 yards, 23 touchdowns. He also ran for over 300 yards and he returned some kicks too. So he had more than 1,500 all-purpose yards. So yeah, they were just getting him the ball any way possible.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the high school, competition is like in Kansas. I imagine it's not super, super great, but he did the most with every touch he got. So we love that.
I mean, you could put too much stock into that. Like, eventually they're going to see better competition. That's not
exactly. I agree.
I think a lot of people in the community honestly put too much stock into high school competition. Not saying that it doesn't matter. Hear me before you crucify me in the comments, please. I'm saying I think we put too much stock in that when we know they're going to go on to the next level, and let's see how they compete at that level now. Yeah.
Absolutely. Good if I had to pour any cold water on it, I would say, we haven't seen a ton of him blocking. So I feel like maybe he needs to improve that a little bit. I mean, on one hand, like, does he really? The modern game, tight ends don't need to block that much. But on the other hand, you want to be on the field as much as possible. So I think that's something they'll probably work on him with a little bit at Kansas State, especially with that veteran tight end room that I was alluding to. So they're going to find ways to get the ball in his hands early and help him develop as much as possible as a blocker as well. So definitely looking forward to him. He's the one tight end that right now I would be most excited to roster on Devy if we're looking at a longer term projection than, just maybe somebody coming out next year. Another guy who I am extremely excited about, and I wish I would have done even more research on, was one of your guys, Talyn Taylor, the wide receiver out of Georgia. When you put him on my radar, I have a tendency to get focused on the guys that I want to talk about, because this is half my show too, darn it.
Right.
But I definitely loved this pick for you, and I'm excited to see what you have to say about him.
Yeah, shout out to Matty Ice in the Devy Royale Discord, man. I even had to confirm with him the other day in the DMs, like, hey, you're all in on this guy, right? Because he's amazing and he could start. And he was like, yeah, dude, he's going to be pretty good, and he could get some burn. Again, that's a kind of a theme for some of these guys that I'm going to talk about tonight, is that opportunity. But Chris, Talyn Taylor might be one of the cleanest. He might be one of the most technically refined receivers in this entire freshman class. He doesn't need a megaphone. His feet do the talking. The first time I saw that clip of the end zone fade, the one during the spring game or spring practice where he kind of contorted in midair, double tap, got both toes down like he was playing in the NFL. I saw that in slow motion, and I just knew that he belonged. That was the moment I realized this kid can play at this level as a freshman. And I mean, look, 6'1", 190 pounds already coming out of high school. He's already kind of got like the modern frame for wide receivers, right? I talked last week about my type of wide receiver. I really like those 6'4" guys, but nowadays the modern game, 6'1", 190 pounds, 200 flat, you're good. So the build's still a little wiry, right? He's got to develop some of that man strength that we talk about, but the suddenness out of the breaks is special to me, especially as an incoming freshman. Taylor's game, it's built on that separation, the tempo, the body control. He's a guy that's really going to eat and attack the holes left in zone coverage. And for a guy without like verified top end speed, I think his play speed might actually fool people. He kind of glides through those defenders like he's weightless. The comp for me that keeps popping in my head is like a light version of Chris Olave, right? Like he doesn't quite have that same vertical gear right now that Olave had when he was at Ohio State, but the smoothness, the timing, the clean transition work, to me,
yeah, that's a good comp.
It's
I like
all
that.
there. Yeah, thank you. I was pretty proud.
He's just exciting, dude. Like he's just a highlight machine. Every time you see a clip of him floating around somewhere, it's like, wow, that was cool. You know, like he can go up and get balls that are way overthrown with a nice wingspan, pull it in when it's behind his head. You know, and you're like, man, a lot of people couldn't have made that catch. He just accelerates so smoothly, like you said. Strong hands. He's a highlight machine, man. I'm looking forward to him.
Wingspan. I'm glad you mentioned that because I didn't even touch it. Like he's listed at 6'1". I don't know about you, Chris. I was surprised to see that because I thought he was a lot taller. Looking
He plays a lot taller than he looks, or than he's listed as, I should say.
He's kind of like maybe not as long, but like obviously he's taller than this guy. But Latsier Brooks really stood out to me with the long wingspan, and that's kind of what he did too. And you talked about it, the strong hands, attaching it or attacking at the catch point. It's all there as a freshman. So again, another guy that I look at the wide receiver room around him. I'm a Zachariah Branch denier,
right? Of course.
I think that underneath work that he's going to get as a gadget guy, because that's what Branch is going to do. He's not going to do real wide receiver stuff. So I think those looks that they're giving with him is really going to free Taylor up on the outside or in the slot. However they use him, I think he could play all along the line, like anywhere you want to line him on the field. I think he can play it as a freshman. And right now, he might not be a day one starter, but I think as the year goes on, he's going to be a guy that, as he continues to gain trust of the coaching staff, he's going to go out there and he's going to perform and he's going to ball out. If you have any C2C teams, I know he's going a lot higher in that format because of the perceived opportunity that's going to be there. But in Devy, I see an NFL wide receiver potentially down the gate. I think right now you look at like, yes, that's exactly. I think I just took him in that combined startup. I think I took him in like the 28th round.
It was late, man. Absolutely. It was a nice snag. We've been flexing our Devy muscles a little bit, I feel like, in these later round picks. I like that, you know. Shout out to our league mates on that one, because we love you all. But, you know, every once in a while we got to bust out. You know, we're the dojo. We got to get those later round guys that we know are going to rise up a little bit.
That's right, man. We've been in the dojo prepping for this.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's exciting though, man. I completely agree with everything you said. I think he's got a lot of opportunity in front of him both this year, but especially moving forward. He's got a lot of projection to potentially be a high NFL draft pick, especially as he gets a little bit bigger and gets a little bit more of that, maturity of a more depth of talent that he's playing against. But he just makes so many catches that are seemingly impossible for a lot of people. So I think as he improves a little bit and gets a rapport with his quarterback, he's going to grow a lot and move up people's draft boards.
Yeah, and that's the hesitation, right? I mean, you're not supposed to helmet scout, but you can't help but think like Georgia doesn't typically use their wide receivers in the best way, but hope is on the horizon. I think I think Georgia's shown some signs that they're going to evolve a little bit. Now, I don't necessarily trust Gunnar Stockton as a passer at this point, at least not from what we've seen. So I do have my hesitations there. But I mean, it's the University of Georgia. You know, they got Curtis, the quarterback in the next recruiting cycle on deck there. Number 1 quarterback recruit in that class, I believe. Don't quote me on that. I'm just now really starting to get into looking at these future guys for the show. But
kill them in the
big time
comments,
programs.
people.
Kill
them in the comments.
I'm cooked. I'm cooked, man. So no, I mean, I did have that reservation, but trust in the talent. I mean, Lad McConkey wasn't used. I mean, he had injuries as well, but he wasn't the best.
It doesn't mean that, if you're getting
set.
all that opportunity, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to make it at the higher level. Look at, George Pickens is kind of the same way. I mean, he was great in college, but he wasn't like the elite level that we saw out of him in Pittsburgh and are hoping to see out of him now in Dallas. So, it's one of those things. They do the things that they do right down in Georgia, and they will develop him in the appropriate ways if needed. He just might not have, which is why I'm kind of shocked that he's going higher in C2C, because Georgia's a little bit shaky on how they use him, exactly like you're saying. But good for him, man, and good for us. Good find. We were all giving out a lot of shout outs today, and I got to shout out Corey from Campus to Canton, because he put a guy on my radar that I wanted to discuss. Elijah Thomas, wide receiver out of Oklahoma. Let me pull up his tweet. I saw this tweet probably like a week ago or so. What was that? July 22nd. This was his stats in the playoffs of his senior season. Elijah Thomas went bonkers, says Corey, during the playoffs. He put up 8 receptions for 270 yards and 4 touchdowns in the quarterfinal. And then he followed it up with a 6-catch, 241 and 2 touchdown performance in the semifinal loss. Pretty darn good. And when you look at his whole body of work, it backs it all up. He's a 4-star prospect. He was regarded as a top 25 wide receiver by pretty much all of the major platforms. Oklahoma Player of the Year. So I feel like he's been flying under radars, and Corey and now us are trying to promote this guy a little bit, because he's another one that I think you can get a little bit sneaky in Devy startups or later in Devy drafts. Very fast guy. He's an athletic freak. That's a direct quote from his quarterback, John Mateer. He really is. He ran a 10.7 100 time in high school. He had the greatest long jump in the entire recruiting class of 2025. 24-foot long jump. Naturally, that made him a champion in the long jump in states in high school. Very good junior season, but senior season, as we're kind of alluding to with these playoffs, as a whole body of work, had 1,800 yards and 26 touchdowns on 72 receptions. So what's that, like a third of the time he was catching a ball, it was a touchdown? That's pretty ridiculous, man. He also ran 63 times for 406 yards and 10 touchdowns. So he accounted for 36 touchdowns on offense his senior year.
So you like those guys that can do it all. You like those guys that can do it all, Chris.
I like, we like those multi-sport athletes. We like those guys that are lining up in weird places, because, ultimately, especially in high school, if you got a good player like that, you want to get him the ball so that he can show it off. And that's exactly what he did. He was also a baller at the safety position as well, but naturally he's playing wide receiver in college, which is why we're talking about him. To continue John Mateer's lovely praise of him this month, he also said, quote, "It's not all the time that a freshman receiver can feel the game the way he does, but he feels the game real well." I love that, man. I love this praise from John Mateer for a true freshman wide receiver that he's going to be throwing to this year. We love John Mateer on this podcast. We've talked about him on our QB tiers. You just had him at 112, I think, in your way too early mock draft. So when a guy like that is praising a true freshman, he's going to get an opportunity, especially this year. He's going to want to find ways to throw him the ball. So let's just hope that they give him more than 4 games so he can be out there all year.
That's right. Look, we love Johnny Paycheck right here. That's John Mateer. John Mateer, for those who don't know. So yes, did put him 112 in that mock. Early flag plan as my big riser for the 2026 NFL draft. But look, they got to get him weapons. And I'm looking at how he's going to fit under new offensive coordinator Ben Arbuckle. I think Oklahoma, they're expected to lean into more of that tempo, vertical spacing concepts, a perfect environment for Elijah Thomas to carve out a role. His speed, it's going to make him a threat on those go balls. You got the jet motion stuff too, layered shot plays, early touches. I think they're going to come in that manufactured space. But I think if he continues to develop like how we think he can, he's going to push for that rotational boundary role sooner than expected. So very, very excited for him and his long-term outlook. I comped him. I'm trying to do a lot of comps for these guys, and I think stylistically he brings like flashes of a Jaden Reed with his positional versatility and toughness, and a little bit of a name I haven't heard in a while, Van Jefferson. That vertical pacing, sideline awareness. I don't think he's there yet, but that foundation that he has is very promising. And yes, shout out to our friend Corey P for that. Yeah, man, that guy is in those Devy and C2C streets, man. He's like just a never-ending fountain of information, and I'm so grateful to have him.
He's one of my favorite Twitter follows. Absolutely,
yeah.
he knows his stuff for sure.
Incredible human.
I'm happy to know him, and just wanted to highlight too. Only 6 kickoff returns his senior year, but one of them was a 99-yard touchdown. So just get this guy the ball, man. Find ways to get him the ball. And we know Mateer is going to throw the ball at any angle to get the ball to a receiver. So we're looking forward to seeing what Elijah Thomas can do.
We just need football here, man. I say it on every episode. We need football back. I need to be seeing
hits and
hearing the pads, man.
We're almost in August. As we record, it's the 29th of July. So we're about a month out. Yeah. Looking forward to it, man. Tell me a bit about CJ Carr, because he's a guy that I hadn't really done a whole lot of work on, quarterback out of Notre Dame, but he's a guy you wanted to talk about today.
Yeah, this is the guy I asked if we could include redshirt freshmen in the freshman fever episode, because I had to talk about CJ Carr. And look, Chris, when you walk into a room with the last name Carr and your grandfather is Lloyd Carr, who was the longtime head coach who led Michigan to a national championship back in 1997. So when you carry that last name, you're not just carrying a clipboard, you're carrying a legacy. But what's been impressive about CJ Carr is how determined he's been to carve out his own path. He didn't choose Michigan. He chose Notre Dame. And now heading into 2025,
good for him. We love that.
Yeah, and he had a visit too. He had a visit with Michigan. He did not choose them. But now heading into 2025, he's on track to be the Irish's next starting quarterback and possibly their most exciting passing prospect since Jimmy Clausen. Dare I even say Brady Quinn?
Look, I like that.
The spring game is what changed everything for me, right? It was a quarterback audition for him. Carr competed against Stephen Jelly and Kevin Minchie, and he came out of the spring game looking like he owned the offense. He 14 of 19 for 170 yards and 2 touchdowns. But most importantly, he displayed command. He showed that timing and the ball placement that really got everyone's attention. So Stephen Jelly, he actually transferred shortly after. He was like, yeah, I'm not getting that job. I'm getting out of here for a spot that I can actually compete for a starting position. That didn't happen by accident. Carr made the position his by his performance. And now I'm looking and I'm like, all right, we got Riley Leonard gone to the NFL somehow, right? He somehow got drafted. But we know Riley Leonard didn't really offer you much in terms of passing, but he was definitely a rushing threat. He rushed for nearly 1,000 yards. And now Notre Dame can lean into more of that traditional timing-based passing attack that Mike Denbrock likes to employ. And for those who are not familiar with Mike Denbrock, just go back to his time at LSU when he was calling plays for Jaden Daniels. It tells you everything you want to know about him as a play caller. So I think that fits Carr to a T. He's not a scrambler, right? But he's precise and rhythm-driven with a compact delivery, right? And there's questions around Jeremiah Love's volume as a ball carrier, whether or not he can handle that volume, whether or not his body's going to handle the workload and the punishment that he's about to employ. So I do think that going forward, we're going to see more passing, more of the vertical concepts there in Notre Dame, which is very exciting because if you looked at Jaden Greathouse down the stretch and in the playoffs last year, he was really cooking with Riley Leonard. So I think that they got something there in terms of weapons for this guy too.
Yeah, we haven't talked about Greathouse much, but he's an awesome receiver for a guy like this, a younger guy, because I think he's reliable. He's one of those guys that's kind of like a mid-tier prospect in Devy, but I think he's going to be a fantastic asset for Carr in the Notre Dame locker room to try to help him develop a little bit more and get open and have a downfield receiver for him.
Yeah, I mean, just in the national championship versus Ohio State, Greathouse caught 6 passes for 128 yards and 2 touchdowns against pretty good defense.
Very good defense.
With Riley Leonard throwing him the football. So, I mean, I'm looking at that. I'm looking at the reported chemistry between these two already, and I'm pretty excited. But now, I mean, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, of course. There are limitations, right? Carr's yet to even play a college game under pressure. We don't know how he'll handle the chaos or when the pocket breaks down under duress, but watching him in spring again, have to go back to that. Combining that with the schematic upgrade and weaponry, I think it makes his upside real. Now, PFF College, those guys, they actually called him a Heisman dark horse based
I
off
like
the
that.
structure, anticipation, and system support. I don't know if I'm ready to go that far, but he was on their dark horse list. Like the whole point of the show was to provide you with a list of names of people that nobody's really talking about who could be in consideration for the Heisman. So, I mean, getting some good steam there.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I agree with you. I don't see a ton of rushing in his projection, so I don't think he's it seems like he can move around the pocket a little bit, so he can successfully navigate if there's a pass rush coming, trying to get the ball out. But I don't see him as a real rushing threat, not really a dual threat quarterback like we like to see, which in some senses limits his overall upside, I think. But he's a guy that I think is going to develop a lot as a quarterback. I hear that he's very cerebral. He's a student of the game, which you would expect from a guy with his familial background that he has. When you got a grandfather that's a legendary coach, I would assume that you're studying a lot of playbooks and making sure that you can read defenses pretty well. So that's going to give him a little bit of an edge, especially for a younger guy, a little bit more of that background to say, maybe I shouldn't make this throw, or maybe, there's a guy that I know is not open right this second, but in a split second, he's going to be open. And that's what we're trying to project out of him, is being a little bit more of a pocket passer, a more traditional guy. Not at all like Riley Leonard. And I'm right, or you're right. I was a little shocked as well that Riley Leonard was drafted, but he was fun as hell to watch in college, at least. So
hey,
he's got that going for him.
He put it all on the line there in the national championship. Like, I think that first drive, didn't he rush like 8 straight times?
Yeah, it was awesome.
Something crazy. Like he wanted it. He's a baller in his own right. That was no shade towards him. He's just not an NFL level passer, and that's not a knock on him.
Which is exactly why the Colts drafted him. Sorry about that. Ooh. So we expanded it to not just true freshmen. We got red shirts, so of course I got to talk about a Penn State guy, but he is a guy who, I'm trying to temper my expectations for a lot of these guys. I'm trying to be unbiased. I'm very excited about Quinton Martin Jr., who is not Quinton. I keep wanting to say that because his name's been in the news cycle a lot recently. But Quinton Martin Jr., he's a 6'1", 206-pound running back, local kid from here in the Pittsburgh area. He played at Bell Vernon, which is a pretty larger school south of the city a bit. He led them to 2 state championships his junior and senior year. So he was one of those guys, at least locally around here in Pittsburgh. He had some buzz. A little bit younger, people knew he was going to go on to do some great things, kind of following that Miles Sanders path of being a local Pittsburgh kid and then, skirting Pittsburgh because he wants to play for an actual good football team out at Penn State. So we're looking forward to him. He got a little bit of time last year. I think he's probably more disappointed than anybody else on earth that all of the running backs came back for Penn State. So he's not going to have as much of an opportunity as we might have expected here in his redshirt freshman year, but I think they're going to find ways to get the ball into his hands. As the third running back in the room, he's going to provide an opportunity to be a little bit of a change of pace for them and start to show us the flashes that made him such a high recruit. He was listed as an athlete, I think, when he originally recruited, so he could have played linebacker. He's actually got a little bit of a wide receiver to his game too, which we did see last year in his limited touches. They had split him out wide a few times. As we've kind of talked to a little bit when we talked about Singleton, obviously the receivers haven't been fantastic at Penn State, so they've been splitting some of their running backs out wide, and he did pretty well in his touches in high school out wide. So he's got that nuance to his game where, as you said before, we love guys who can line up all over the field and play different positions offensively. He was the number 6 running back in his class, and actually Corey Smith, the other freshman at Penn State running back, actually had a better statistical year than him in their redshirt season and their limited touches, but I think he's got the higher upside, and I think he's going to be the lead dog next year after Katron and Nick Singleton both head to the NFL. So I'm looking forward to him, man. He's very just patient runner. We talked about that a little bit with Gideon Davidson. I like those kind of guys that can see the field a little bit better, a little bit more mature, great vision. He can plan ahead and make guys miss, so he knows where he's running. He does not just north-south running full steam ahead. He's got a little bit of that shiftiness to his game, a little bit of that cerebralness to his game, great footwork. And as I touched on, he should be a pretty nice receiving threat too. So I don't think we're going to see a ton out of him this year as the third running back, but pay attention when he's in the game because he's going to be playing against some lesser talent, hopefully, if they're up, 70 points and throwing him in there and saying, hey, you'll get a couple series in. Looking forward to seeing what he does this year as a build up to being the lead dog next year.
Yeah, it has to be pretty infuriating for him, right? To not have just Singleton come back, but to have Katron Allen come back too. Like, come on, man. I can't even be the second back in the rotation now. I still got to play.
He's going to get a national championship though. So, it's all worth it in the end.
Yeah. I mean, I guess when you got Drew Lar as your quarterback, you got to employ three running backs, right?
Oh, rough. Zinging me, man. I love that guy. I'm looking forward to this season. Penn State, man, very good. Top 5 defense, top 5 offense. It's going to be a fun team to watch.
This is your year. If you guys were ever going to do it, this is the time to do it.
The seat has never been hotter for James Franklin, and I know a lot of people don't love James Franklin. I've always been a supporter, but at this point, push and shove have now met. So let's go do it.
I mean, Kirby Smart didn't win a national championship either until he was however many years in. I mean, seat's definitely hot when you play for big programs like that. He does have to win in the big games, man. He really does.
I think it's only him and Dabo are the only 2 coaches in the NCAA, I believe, that have played or coached for more than 10 years and won 70% of their games. So
he's a good coach. He's a
good coach. He just against those bigger, those bigger games and those top teams, he's not always up to snuff. And this is the year that they got to do it.
Yeah, he's got to change the narrative somehow. So
to pour a little bit of cold water again, I don't want to talk about all the fun stuff with Quinton Martin. I would just say, as an overall, he needs to develop a little bit more. Is he just going to be a gadget player at the NFL, or is he going to be a true workhorse running back at the NFL level? Because gadget players have their rules to play, and they're certainly on our fantasy teams, but they're not the guys that you're super excited to start. So we talked about it last week with Shakai Mills-Knight. These taller guys, he's 6'1". He needs to focus, I think, on getting his center of mass a little bit lower, not running quite so upright. And, where is he going to ultimately mature into? Is he going to be an every down back that NFL teams are salivating over and making a day 1 or day 2 pick? Or is he just going to be, a 6th-round pick that we're talking about maybe being in a rotation with other guys? So while I'm excited about him, and while deservedly so, I think he's one of those guys, like we talked about earlier with Gideon Davidson. People have heard his name for sure, especially in the Devy circles, but we're going to have a little bit more time to wait to see exactly what he's going to be. But I wanted to talk about him because I like him. Get your own podcast.
I mean, there's a wide range of outcomes for him. He's definitely talented. The people that I respect still have him ranked very highly. So, I mean, he's a weapon. He obviously went to Penn State. They know how to develop those running backs. Obviously, they have probably the best strength and conditioning program in all of college athletics, period. So, I mean, you get an athletic freak like that in there developing his body. I'm excited to see what he can do. Probably not going to get a lot of burn this year, like you said, unless they're really just burning or blowing teams out and, he gets his couple little series in. But, I mean, continuing on, right, that's part of Devy, that's part of Dynasties, these future projections and how they can impact our rosters going forward. It's definitely talent that you want to bank on, especially in that program.
Yeah, and if you got some leverage, later in the season where he hasn't been getting the ball very often, and you're looking at your team, and you're like, I'm not winning a championship this year, trade one of your vets for this guy. He's going to be falling under people's radars if he's not getting as many touches as we think he's going to get, or I guess the other way around. If he does get as many touches as we think he's going to get, which isn't going to be a ton, he's going to be an opportunity to maybe be a buy in October or whatever, when you're starting to realize, my starting lineup isn't doing it quite as well as I thought it would be. And that's always an edge that you need to take in your Devy game. Trade for these guys.
He'd be a nice little cherry on top in a deal, right? I don't think he'd be the primary piece that you're trading for, exactly right. But he's that nice little part of the deal that you want, that somebody's not really
nickel and dime.
Have him thrown in. That's a good little cherry on top.
And moving on, we're sticking in the Big Ten. We have Quincy Porter. We've talked about how much we like wide receivers from Ohio State before, and there's good reason to be excited for him as well.
Yeah. Another guy that when I watched the tape, I was like, man, this is calling to me, Chris. I finally, the last 2 nights, I've just been putting on these highlights before bed, and my wife's like, what the heck is wrong with you? What are you doing over there? And I'm like, I'm watching these highlights of Quincy
Getting
Porter.
hot
She's
and
like,
heavy over here
go
watching
to
football
bed.
highlights.
Go to bed. I'm like, no, because I love this. And I'm getting off track here, man. But the kid's
I love
fun.
it.
The kid's fun, right?
Absolutely.
But we already knew one thing about Quincy Porter, and it was his frame, right? This big time 5-star recruit that Ohio State just has in troves. It's ridiculous. 6'4", 205 pounds, clean build, prototype X. But what caught me off guard was the way he moves after the catch. He's got like a little man's game and a big man's body. We're talking spins, cuts, jukes, surprisingly nimble stuff for a guy his size. Look, I described him this way. He's a bulldozer with ballerina feet. You expect him to bull forward, but he'll shake a defensive back in the flat like he's playing slot, right? The physical traits, they're exactly what you'd expect from a high-end boundary guy. He's got the long arms, strong hands, and real body control in those contested catch situations. He's the kind of guy who will box out a corner and he'll win a back shoulder fade like a power forward. But that added yards after catch juice just makes him so much more dynamic than like your typical high point specialist, because he's not a burner. I think his track speed would lend itself to that, but his play speed, it's more than functional. He's efficient, smooth, so smooth, and always in control. Like he just looked like he was lights and above better than his competition. He had some decent competition in high school. He was a top 25
he doesn't
overall
have to be
recruit.
A burner, right? He's
You
got
don't
that
have to
deep
be a
threat
burner.
ability. You can see some of his highlights where he's getting around defensive backs, and he does have that big size. So, he's definitely a deep threat as he, continues to get downfield. And he's got a 6'9" wingspan. So, I mean, he's catching balls that are just throwing up and go get it.
Yeah, exactly. It was like you pulled that straight from my notes. Incredible athlete. I just cannot get some of these images out of my head, man. Wow, he could catch the ball and legitimately just juking fools, right? Stiff arming, spinning. Like, you do not expect a big body guy like that to move like that. So I think the ceiling is real. The obvious comp for him that people gave was Drake London. Big frame, strong after the catch, wins vertically. But with the way that Quincy Porter sets guys up in space, I actually think he's got a little bit of Plaxico Burress in him, the way he moves, right? That long gliding style, late hands, and the height as well, too. And so that's my comp for him is Plaxico Burress. What do you think about that?
I think I need to work on my comp game because, I'm over here comping like Jeremiah Love to, whoever, Darren McFadden, and then you're comping this guy to a bulldozer with ballerina feet. So I'm going to work. That's my homework for the next week, is how am I going to be better at comps? Because that was an amazing anecdote right there. But Plexico, I love that. Yeah, Plexico was an awesome, semi-unorthodox, not your typical receiver. So that's a good comp. I like that.
Yeah. Not all sunshine and rainbows, right? Again, and this is where we have to be honest, because at Ohio State, that room is going to stay crowded. So even if a guy like Jeremiah Smith goes pro in 2 years, you're still looking at like a Mylan Graham hanging around. Next year, you got Chris Henry Jr. coming in. Brandon Ennis right now is still hanging around somewhere. I don't know why that dude hasn't transferred yet, because he's also talented. But that's my point, is you're always going to have these guys coming in. There's always going to be another future wide receiver one walking through that door. So even though Porter's early development is promising, right? Like he was the first of his freshman class this year to lose his black stripe, which is always telling, and it's always you always need to pay attention to that for these Ohio State wide receivers. But I mean, the opportunity timeline is tight. If he doesn't separate soon, he could get leapfrogged again. So bottom line, he's a long view Devy play. I don't think you're drafting him obviously for 2025 volume, but if you got patience, I think Quincy Porter is he's exactly the kind of stash who could explode in year 2 or year 3 once the dust settles in that crowded receiver room. Because the size is real, right? The yards after catch ability is very good, and he's already flashing. So if you have patience, it could pay dividends for you.
Absolutely. And Brian Hartline, man, what he's been able to do in the last few years with all those guys, obviously exciting. And now he's calling plays. So if he has any belief in Quincy, then he's definitely going to get him the ball in some ways. And, I appreciate you pulling him up here, because I've been kind of blinded. Obviously, everybody likes Jeremiah Smith, and I'm a big Carnell Tate guy too. So I've been kind of blinded by those two. Every time I want to watch Ohio State highlights, I'm just like, look at these two. I love these guys so much. But he's definitely got the next man up in his future. I think if he sticks around.
I think Chris, in a few years we might look back and say, yeah, of course it was Porter, right? That broke out there because the size, the body control, yards after catch, it was all there from day one. So I could be looking back and saying, of course it was him. Look at him.
Yeah, and as we've said before, and we'll say again, just draft these Ohio State wide receivers, man. There's a reason that they're going there. They're good.
Yeah,
they got a good recruiting program there. Just do it. And if you got to sit and wait, just who cares?
Yeah,
just wait. He'll get his chance. We're going to continue our Midwest road trip here. We've moved from Pennsylvania to Ohio, and now we will go north to Michigan. I wanted to talk about Andrew Marsh, wide receiver out of Michigan. He's a fun one to watch, man. I know that a lot of my Michigan friends are excited about him. 6 foot flat, 175 pounds. He's one of those guys that did track lots of sweet jump measurables. He high jumped 6'4", which is pretty cool. And he's just like a nice developed route runner, even as a freshman coming into college. He kind of runs a little, I think I just used the term unorthodox, but I'll use it again because he makes awesome cuts, but he kind of like moves his arms in a way that they're kind of like flapping around a little bit, if you've watched any of his highlights, but it's in a nuanced way. He's doing it on purpose. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's like if he's being the opposite of snappy, but on purpose, because it can kind of trick the defenders a little bit and it gets him open a lot. So I like the way he kind of stutters and he can dial up his acceleration, dial down his acceleration, make quick changes of direction and get himself open. So he's a pretty fun route runner, one of the more fun route runners I've seen out of this 2025 cycle of freshmen. And I think the way that he kind of approaches the game is a little bit more unique than a lot of these guys coming out right now. I also think, even just for being 6'5", 6'0", 175 pounds, he just looks and plays a little bit bigger than he is. Probably some of that has to do with his athleticism, those jumping measurables. He's got a nice catch radius, and we're obviously excited about the future of Michigan with Bryce Underwood being there. And this could eventually turn into his go-to guy. So I'm pretty excited for him. He's a guy, that I'm definitely targeting in my Devy drafts.
Yeah, I think he hit the nail on the head, right? If we believe in Bryce Underwood the way that we say we do, then we need to put some more stock into these wide receivers. And I don't care that he's at Michigan. I know that traditionally they don't really put out anything at the wide receiver position, especially recently. So, but I don't care. I think he fits in well with exactly what they want to do, what that offense wants to develop. And as Sharon Moore continues to call plays for them, I think they want that more explosive vertical passing game with Bryce Underwood at the helm, like we said. I think that Marsh's skill set aligns well with boundary and red zone packages. I think early on, his role that he's going to be able to carve out is that like possession plus maybe like a vertical shot down the field, but he's really going to be that possession type wide receiver in those intermediate routes, the 10 through 19 intermediate gigs, stuff like that. Yeah, I think he's going to dominate on those right now. So a guy that I need to look more into, but from what I've seen, I'm very, very excited. And I know that Bryce Underwood has already been speaking very highly about him. Seems like they're really starting to develop that chemistry early on, and like that's what we want to see right now, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that you're exactly right. He reminds me a little bit of Jamie French too, out of Texas. Another true freshman. One of those guys that just seems to just get open, where he's going to be one of those guys that the quarterback's just going to look around and say, oh, there he is, wide open, as you said, in the intermediate routes, not necessarily a super deep threat or anything like that, but just a reliable route runner that's going to find ways to get open. So I'm looking forward to seeing him and Bryce together in Michigan.
Yep. Had to put him on the thumbnail, get people talking about him.
He's got a cool hairdo too.
Yeah, he does, man. He's a cool cat. Little swaggy cat out there, man. I'm pretty excited to see him and Bryce Underwood together.
Me too, man. And look at that. We're finally, every episode we grow as a podcast. We're finally realizing that we shouldn't put too many people on our show sheet because 8 players, nailed it. We're at 55 minutes. Love it.
Look at that. Look. We're getting better, guys. We're improving as we go along. I've learned to shut my mouth and not talk for 20 minutes about the first player on the screen and move on and pace myself, right? So
How about it?
look at us. Look at us. Who would have thought we'd be here?
And I've learned that my wife is surprisingly okay with me doing exactly what you're talking about and just constantly watching high school football highlights.
Yes. Yeah. It's the perfect bedtime routine.
Love it.
Well, Chris, and everybody listening, that's going to do it for this episode of the Devy Dojo. And look, if you enjoyed the show, if you got some value or you learned something new, do us a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and follow the pod wherever you listen. And drop a comment while you're at it. Like, I want to know who's a freshman you're all in right now.
We've done 2 episodes on freshmen. We definitely missed some. So drop one in there.
Yeah, so
talk to us.
Tell me who I'm too high on. Tell me who Chris is too low on. I want you to drop your list below. And I really want to get that discussion going because I've said it before. I'll continue to say it. This show isn't just for us. It's for the whole dojo. Your takes matter. Your sleeper picks matter. So let's keep building the best Devy community out there. Now, join us next week. We're going to be breaking down some recent drafts, some real combined drafts that Chris and I have participated in. And we're going to break those down. We're going to be running some mock drafts within our community there in the Discord. So get in while it's hot because we're going to be pumping out some mock drafts like crazy right now. And we're going to be spitting out some real ADP. I know in the Devy land, ADP can be kind of a myth. So we're going to be spitting out some of that ADP for you. But
absolutely.
That is next week. So until next time, I will see you in the next session at the dojo.
We are here. FantasySportsAdvice.com, offering the best fantasy sports social media platform. Why join endless Discord communities or the trolls of Reddit? Fantasy Sports Advice is a community designed to help you win with 24/7 support. Go to FantasySportsAdvice.com and become a pro member for unlimited access. Again, go to FantasySportsAdvice.com today.